So, Greenberg. So there, camera there, spot there. Which way are they coming? Are they going? Are they walking?
Just down the road.
Like they'll walk here and then just like this.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Why do you guys always put me like in mud? You do this to me on purpose? Like you pick the muddiest spot and then sit me up right there? What you wrote is very nice. Very good. We should have done that.
I tried to.
I thought it was very nice. You capture everything. You made my work, like I didn't have to do much. I wrote a little bit at the beginning, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, okay? Does that sound good? But it was nice. It was very, very nice. You got it. Do you have your sisters? Like, we'll get the ribbons, and we'll do them. Like she said, I'm taking a ribbon. But I want put the ribbon. I've got an extra one in my cart. Do you want me to go get one? Of course. Will you get them? Will you get them over here? I want to do it right here. Okay. Not just your sisters. Just your sisters. But I'll go get you. Do I need? You need. Sure. My dog.
Sit on that bench.
No, we'll sit there. Mom told me to get it for Karen.
Well, let's go on back.
Hi, Ellen.
Becky, hi.
Nice to see you.
He did more than that. How you doing?
I gotta hide this, so because my mother's watching it, it's televised. I don't want her to see that I brought this. I always like to hit somebody.
Thank you.
I like to have something that I can take care of myself.
By Larry. Yeah, right?
That's gonna be.
Here's a chair right here. Can you sit here?
Oh yeah, you can sit there. You can wheel.
Lissy, I need another chair.
Yeah,
Can you get it for me?
it's this tree. Where do you want it? In the shade there?
Ask Jenny.
Like, don't ask. You're not the old man. I'm the old man. Really? Leave me back and smell again. All right. Hi, honey. Sorry about the mask. Work mode. You know that I work a lot. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'll grab it.
Oh, I refuse to get in.
So you have to announce who works for whoever can find your ribbons.
Do you still talk to students?
I'm not going for a surgery. I went once.
It's funny.
Then changed the same surgery. Had heat. Last thing. If you're talking about many you don't think about it afterwards. I have had surgery and was successful. Now I got another issue. Yeah. Same but different. Yeah.
Shane Feeney.
I know she's very well. He's a pain doctor. I haven't. Oh, the cameras.
That's very good eyes. That's our name. Well, I am not supposed to put the phone here in the sound, so I'm going to
Who's that there? Gordon K? Is he still in politics?
Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai Oseh shamayim v'haaretz. Ezri me'im Adonai Oseh shamayim v'haaretz. Ayitein lamod raglecha ayanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha yad yeminecha. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. Al mekomo yavo v'shalom. We begin with the recitation of a psalm, as is our tradition. Psalm 121, Shir Lama'alot, a song for those who ascend. I turn my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming now and forever. May Leonard Greenberg go unto God in peace. Hatzur tamim Paulo kichol rachav mishpat el emunah ve'inav el tzadik v'yashar hu tzadik atah Adonai lamidu lahachayot asher biyadcha bigadon kol ruchot chalilu lecha zichronenu limchot v'yihiyuna einecha berachamim aleinu fekuchot ki lecha Adon harachamim ve'haslichot. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה להשיב אפו ולא ירקח חמתו, וישוב העפר על הארץ שהיה, והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May our beloved soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal, and may God send comfort to those who mourn and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to those of you who have tuned in to our broadcast if you can't be with us here at the cemetery. We've come together today as a community to honor Leonard Greenberg, Label ben Yosef Verivka, the son of Joseph and Eva Greenberg, Zichronam Livracha, of blessed memory. We are here today to pay him the ultimate respect by accompanying him here to his final resting place. We're here to take stock of and celebrate his life. And we are here to say goodbye. Leonard passed away on Monday, the second day in the Hebrew month of Elul. He was 99, just weeks shy of his 100th birthday. He is remembered today and going forward by his loving family, his son Howie, his daughters and their partners, Sean and Robert, Linny and Ian, his grandchildren and their partners, Jill and Alex, David and Sarah, Becky and Marshall, Laura and Greg, Amy and Josh, Lissy and Tamir, by his great-grandchildren, Riley, Isabel, Rowena, Nora, Max, Leo, Aiden, Olivia, and Shai, as well by nieces, nephews, an extended family, and clearly a number of friends. I remarked to the family that we all wish that all funerals were for people in their late 90s, but quite often by that point you don't have so many people to turn out for you. So to have so many people here and even more watching really speaks to Leonard, to his family, to the generations that have come from him and from his late wife, Rowena. So thank you again, everyone, for being here, for joining your hearts together to give courage and strength to Leonard's family during this time of mourning that they have now entered, a vulnerable time. Leonard Greenberg was predeceased by his parents, whom we mentioned, Joseph and Eva, by his wife, whom we mentioned, Rowena, and by 7 siblings. Zichronam Livracha, all of blessed memory. We have the privilege today to hear a eulogy from Howie, Leonard's son, and also to hear words from David, Leonard's grandson. By introduction, I can offer that in the Torah, in Genesis, when it speaks about the patriarch Avraham, just before the end of his life, it says, "Now Abraham was old, advanced in years." The Midrash, a commentary on this line, explains it by saying, "Some have the dignity of old age without length of days, while others have the length of days without the dignity of old age." But in the case of Avraham, the dignity of old age coincided with long life. This was also the case for Leonard Greenberg, who remained sharp mentally until the end of his long length of days. It puts him in special company, in the same breath, I would argue, as a patriarch of our tradition. For Leonard Greenberg was truly the last man standing, the last of a generation, a child of Winnipeg's North End from 100 years ago, the 1920s and the 1930s, the last of 8 brothers and sisters, a doctor from a time when there was a crippling quota on Jewish students getting into med school. His accomplishments in life represent a time from the past that should be honored and remembered, what he had to work for. And those accomplishments he deserves to have celebrated by his family, his ultimate accomplishment, and by his entire community, whom he served professionally for decades. In Jewish tradition, there is this idea that we all today still benefit from the merit of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. Thousands of years later, we still benefit from their good deeds and their strength of character. The legacy Leonard Greenberg leaves behind is similar. It's one his family and we all can especially benefit from, even for generations to come, as the stories of his life, his incredible life, are shared and retold and continue to serve as an inspiration for those who have come after and from him. We will now hear Eulogy from Howie, followed by words from David.
I think this will be okay as long as I just heard about the sun. That's where they put it. Good morning. It is difficult in a few minutes to summarize a lifetime of 100 years. A milestone our father would have reached on September 19th. Some would find it totally inadequate to devote so little time to such a long life. Our father would find anything more than a few words extravagant. Our father was the seventh and last surviving of 8 siblings, 6 brothers and 2 sisters. He was the son of Joe and Eva Greenberg, who raised their family on 181 Manitoba Avenue, right behind the Chesed Chalemes funeral home, and 1 block from the Red River, which, when frozen and shoveled by neighborhood kids, became the playground and hockey rink for kids in the area. My dad walked to the river every day, wearing his older brother's skates, stuffed with newspapers to make them fit, and using magazines as shin pads. My dad was a true child of the dirty 30s, something that stayed with him his entire life. His wardrobe growing up was all hand-me-downs. He would wear suits as a university student because that's what his brothers, many years ahead of him, were discarding. But in spite of that, or maybe because of it, he turned into a dapper adult, always dressed to the nines. My dad was a quiet, shy, and respectful boy, but grew into a terrific athlete, an outstanding student and surgeon. He held provincial records in track and field for years, and I know he was a legend as a hockey player. We have newspaper clippings from these times. He was one of 2 Jewish students accepted to medicine in 1942 when the Jewish quota was in full force. He was so modest that I'm told his parents found out about it by accident. He went on to win almost every medal in every year of school. Although modest, if he had an opinion about a case, it was expressed with confidence and often with significant volume, but he was not a braggart. Our father loved his work and operated till he reached 75, never complaining about working late or being called in. When I was a young boy, I often worried he would not make it home. It was not unusual to see him operate all night, finish a full surgical slate the next day, and meet my mother for a hot dog at a Jets game for dinner. Greenbergs get pale when they are tired, and when he finally walked in after these lengthy work days, he was as white as a ghost. But under that pale skin, he was as strong as an ox, never sick a day in his life. Still golfing at 90, and lucky enough to have a sharp mind until the end. When you shook hands with him, you knew who was on the other end. He was tough, physically and emotionally. He fit the stereotype of a surgeon, meticulous. You could cut your hand on the crease in his pants, and high-strung, although cool and composed in the operating room.
He was a perfectionist and intolerant of any medical or other task that was done, as he was put it, in a half-assed way. The aura of his intellect was palpable in a room. Although his standards were high, as chief of surgery for many years, he realized that everybody made mistakes and always gave his colleagues the benefit of the doubt. One second. My uncle Sam Peacock was his partner for years and himself chief of surgery at the St. Boniface Hospital. He often talked of my dad's integrity. He once remarked that even the Pope was lacking in comparison. His focus was always on the patient. If another physician discussed a patient as a fascinating case, his response was, "Poor bugger." Empathy was always his first reaction. He was an old-fashioned doctor, always in a jacket, and even when making rounds on weekends. He made rounds every day, 7 days a week, and took 2 weeks a year off until he was 70. While my father loved his work, his family always came first. He was the go-to guy in our extended family for advice, medical or other. Although this occasionally followed a barrage of swear words, after this frightening response, he was in your corner. He loved my mother passionately and fought with her with a similar intensity. But nobody got a bigger laugh out of her shtick. Wieners, my mother's nickname, at the clownish antics of Lucy Ricardo and the I Love Lucy show was our home. My dad's exasperated cry, "For crying out loud, Wieners," was a regular response to her daily mishaps. Naomi and Jack Mendelsohn had their first double date with my parents in New York City in 1954, while Jack and my dad were residents there. They said they think my parents wouldn't make it to the weekend. Well, they lasted more than 60 years because nobody could fill Wiener's stiletto heels. When she became ill, he looked after her at home for as long as he could and then spent every day with her at the hospital. He could never look at another woman. My dad was a very private person and extremely shy. He expected nothing from others. He had to be dragged into the operating room for his retirement party. The food was served on an operating table. And while he was extremely grateful when anyone did anything for him, if you gifted him, you were taking your life in your hands. He did not like attention and was embarrassed by praise. My dad liked nothing better than a drink of scotch and watching a crazy comedian like Sid Caesar or Buddy Hackett. He had a boisterous laugh followed by a loud cough and sneeze that could bring the house down. And he himself had a terrific sense of humor. He was a master of the one-liner, particularly puns. I remember when living at home on Bower Boulevard, a frantic call came in from a friend of my mother's. My mother yelled to my father, "Leonard, you better get over to Sadie's." Irving just poured a pot of hot coffee over her head. My dad's reply, "Well, that's grounds for divorce." How to sum up a life of 100 years? Our dad was a devoted husband and father, a highly principled man, and a man of fortitude. While not the oldest in his generation, he was the patriarch of the Greenberg family and the last man standing. It is the end of an era for our family. We love you, Dad. You'll be deeply missed by all of us.
Thank you all very much for coming today to say goodbye to and celebrate the life of a truly remarkable Zedek. Zedek, or Dr. Greenberg as I lovingly called him in his later years, came from a large North End family who, for lack of a better word, were poor. Growing up with nothing no doubt impacted the way my Zedek looked at money. Because of that, he really didn't get anything out of spending money on himself. He felt it was a waste. This was not the case when it came to his grandchildren, and there was no better example than something that came out of a passing comment he made to me at dinner at my parents' house about 10 years ago. My Zedek, who was then about to turn 90, made a comment to me about how the two of us should take a trip together. Flash forward a month, and he called me and said, "It's booked." I, of course, had no idea what he was talking about, but he reminded me about our conversation the month before, and he said, "I hope you're free in February. We're going to South Beach for a week, and then on a 1-week Caribbean cruise." It's hard to explain the range of emotions a single 29-year-old guy feels when they realize they're about to go to one of the best party spots on the planet with their 90-year-old Zedek. Fear, excitement, concern for both our mental and physical health, and every other emotion under the sun. That said, my Zedek was not a typical 90-year-old. He loved to sleep in and stay up late. He had a mind 10 times sharper than I had at 29, shared my love of Scotch, which was his fault in the first place. And when we were together, he was really up for anything I wanted to do, or at least he would do his best to make it look that way. Flash forward a few months, and our plane is touching down in Miami, and we're off to the races. Well, almost. When we arrive to pick up our mid-size American sedan, as per Zedek's wishes, as is often the case, they didn't have the car we booked. While not an uncommon occurrence, Zedek was faced with his first major dilemma of the trip. They had a similar car available, or, to Zedek's delight, a free upgrade. The only problem was, the upgrade was a Chevy Camaro convertible, so low to the ground that in Zedek's words, "I'll never get out of that thing." While the ability to exit the vehicle is a very important part of the rental car experience, it was not as important as taking advantage of the free upgrade. So into the convertible we went, and after a brief argument about me putting the top down and the impact it would have on Zedek's few remaining hairs, I reminded him about the palm comb he always had in his front pocket. He grinned, I hit the gas, and we were off. I could tell 50 other stories like that from the trip, but there was some other major things that came out of our adventure together. Normally, I wouldn't say that Zedek was someone that just went with the flow. He was very clear on this trip, though, that I was in charge of our plans, and he would come along for the ride. We stayed at a very funky South Beach hotel, which he did point out only had hard surfaces, nowhere comfortable to sit. We ate some amazing food in fancy restaurants and in dives. We drank enough scotch and martinis to last a lifetime, but more than anything, there was something different about this experience. My Zedek, as my Uncle Howie mentioned, was a private person, rarely opened up. Spending 2 weeks one-on-one with him, we covered every topic imaginable, from family and work, how he saw the world, and how he would do things differently if he had a chance. And of course, his eternal love for Wolf Blitzer. I learned more about him in those weeks than the previous 29 years combined, and it's something that will stay with me forever. I've always been incredibly proud of my Zedek's accomplishments, and I've shared stories about him with friends. But in the last couple weeks, when he was slowing down, I found myself bringing him into conversations with clients, colleagues, and not surprisingly, the lovely gentleman in the Scotch section at the Grand Park LC. Zedek and I argued all the time about why I waste so much money on buying expensive Scotch. "What's the matter with Johnny Walker Red?" he'd ask. But as he got into his late 90s, he said he was losing his taste for alcohol. He found it burnt when he drank it unless he soaked it in ice. It wasn't until our last visit a week ago that we both concluded he had not lost his taste for scotch. I told him Johnny Walker Red burns for everybody. He said, "It's crap, eh?" and asked me what he should start drinking now. After that visit, I bought a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue to share with him on what would have been his 100th birthday. We didn't get to share that bottle together, but I opened it with family the night he passed away and shared a drink in his honor, something we will no doubt do for years to come. Zeda, I miss you, I love you, and I'm so thankful for the time we had together.
Thank you, Howie. Thank you, David. Tremendous words of tribute, eulogies for, as you said, an incredible man. We'll now chant in Leonard Greenberg's honor the El Malei Rachamim prayer, the traditional Jewish memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim shochein b'meromim Hamsei menucha nechona Tachat kanfei hashchina b'malot kedoshim uteorim kezohar arakia mazhirim and nishmat Label ben Yosef Rivka Shalach leolamo Began Dente menuchato Anabal harachamim Hastireu beseter kenafecha leolamim Utzror litzror achaim enishmato Adonai hu nachalato V'yanuach b'shalom Hamishkavo V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Leonard Greenberg, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that he find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us again say, Amen. In a moment, we'll conclude our service with the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish, followed by the time-honored ritual of shoveling earth into the grave as we come together as a community to lay Leonard Greenberg to rest. We believe in our tradition that our loved ones deserve to be buried by our own hands. Kind hands, knowing hands, sorrowful hands, hands that once held their hands. The family will lead us, and then everyone is invited to participate in this act, which is a mitzvah, a selfless act we do without any hope of any reward. While some people find it painful and difficult, we acknowledge that, but we remind ourselves that it is an act born of love and compassion for someone who clearly meant so much to so many people. As far as the mechanics go for the shoveling, after the family leads us, you'll see that there are shovels on both sides. People can line up from both sides. You may not be able to see it here, but just on the other side of this headstone I'm pointing at, there is a pail with a small shovel and sand in it in case the big shovels are too overwhelming, but you want to participate. Most people pour 3 shovelfuls of earth. Some people use the front of the shovel. Some people use the back of the shovel. Some people pass the shovel to the next person in line. Some people return it to the earth as if reluctant to pass on the burden of shoveling. Whatever the ritual with which you are familiar, whatever the ritual that resonates with you is the one you should embrace, as our goal is always to make each ritual a meaningful experience. After the service concludes, there will be a meal of consolation in Leonard's honor, where our thoughts turn from honoring Leonard, which we will continue to do, to comforting his family. The meal of consolation will be held at the Shaftesbury, 905 Shaftesbury. As far as Shiva goes, the family is going to be spending time together, the immediate family. They've asked others to continue to send messages, text messages, phone calls, emails, but to respect the privacy of the immediate family for their time of Shiva. Again, we thank everyone for coming and thank everyone for tuning in. And again, a thank you to Howie and to David for speaking so tremendously and beautifully. We turn now to the Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Gadash Shemei Rabah. Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal Shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav Huya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, to all humanity. As again we say, Amen. Earlier in the service, we offered the words of Job, the epitome of suffering in Jewish tradition, and we conclude with them again here. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevarach. God you have given, God you have taken away, blessed be the name of God. May the memory of Leonard Greenberg be a blessing as we mark that his essence will never leave our hearts and souls. And to his family we offer Hamakom Yinachem Etchem B'toch Sha'ar Avelei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted and consoled among all those who are or who have ever been in mourning in our community. I invite the family to come forward to lead us in shoveling the earth. And one more time, I'll thank everyone for being here today.
Thank you.